afternoon, everyone. I am Tanisha Tyagi from S. Publishing, and I welcome you all to the second session of Day 1 of the Mathematics Summit, second edition. I hope you all are having a great time and enjoying the sessions. So, in this session, we will be talking about IBL or inquiry-based learning, and our expert speaker, Ms. Monica Kochar, will be telling us about the benefits of IBL for mathematics education. Change. Ms. Monica Kochar is a math-magician. She has been instrumental in removing the trauma of math from students of all age groups in her 2-decade teaching career in CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, and the IB. She has been empathic in her approach to teacher development as a trainer. She worked with schools associated with Oxford University Press, Aurobindo Society, Azim Premji Foundation, and others. She has been a startup mentor, helping the learning design formation for marksharks, Counting Well, whitehat Junior, byju, and convegenius. She is equally comfortable in the corporate or development sector. She has been a published author and has her insights available online. Her mission has been to make the math classroom a joyful learning experience. Before we start, I would like to mention a few housekeeping rules for the session. Change. Participants will be muted throughout the entire session. Please ensure you have a pen and paper to note important information. The chat box will be enabled during the Q&A round or as and when required. To receive your e-certificate, please complete the feedback form sent to your registered email ID after the summit. The lucky draw and quiz will take place tomorrow at the end of the summit, that is at 5 p.m. All the participants stand a chance to win Amazon vouchers worth up to rupees 40,000. So please don't miss any sessions. Now let's welcome Ms. Monica Kochar to take the virtual floor. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'll just, please give me 15 seconds to share the screen.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. All set?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So thanks, Tanisha, and thanks, Eschan, for this get together. It's always like a great feeling to be able to connect with teachers and people from education across India and I'm sure across Asia. This is inquiry-based learning in math. This is something very close to my heart, and according to NEP also, this is now one of the central strategies which should be brought into maths classes. So this particular session I am taking in 5 sections, and after every section or maybe cluster of 2 sections, I will be pausing so that you can ask your questions. Your questions can come in the chat box, and Tanisha or any S-Chand representative would be helping us in reading out your questions. And at points, yeah, thank you. At certain points, I will be asking you questions. So this is like a dialogue way of ensuring a webinar where I can't hear you, but I can still get your questions. And I think that would make it really suitable and fruitful for everyone. And the only expectation I have from you is at the end of this 1 hour of your life that you're giving to us, to listen to us and to have a conversation with us, please take back at least one new idea that you implement in the classes immediately. I think that's the only expectation that we have. And it'll be great if that one idea goes in the lives of the children that you engage with. So let's begin. And yeah, one more thing, there will be short video clippings in the session. because I feel that any idea in which is showed to teachers should always have a short classroom clipping to show how this is being used. Unfortunately, most of the clippings that exist on internet are from the West, so they would be in English. But I'm pretty sure with your experience and your maturity, you will be able to assess what's happening in the classroom. So here we go. According to some writers, inquiry is a way of teaching where the teacher gives a prompt, that is a question to the children or something to hook their attention. And then after that, questioning, generalizing, and proving happens, where the children are driving the class, but the teacher is also there to support them by asking questions. And for example, when I started my teaching, in fact, when I was practice teaching only, and I asked the students in my grade 9, I have taught from grades 5 to 12. So most of my examples will be from these classes, unless I have observed classes from 1 to 4. So I asked the students, what do you think of my teaching? Like, can you give me some feedback? Where can I improve? Where am I not going right? And where am I going right? And the children said, you ask more questions than you give answers. So at that time, I didn't know that I'm just following my own natural flow of being an inquiry teacher. What do you say? Here, if we can take 2-3 replies from the chat box, what do you think inquiry-based learning is? Would be great to see what your thought process is. So if you can open the chat box and take 2-3 answers.
Sure, ma'am. Participants, the chat box is open for you all. You can ask your questions from here.
Please engage. Webinars are always fun when you engage. So you can type out your answers.
If you have any questions, please share your questions in the chat box.
Or your answers. What do you say is inquiry?
Making students think and ponder about by Rifat Shubhana Khan.
Yeah, that's good. Making students think. That is what inquiry includes. What else does inquiry?
Nandana Das is saying to ignite students' thinking skills.
Wonderful.
Then
Thank you.
Pratibha is saying more of a student-oriented teaching method where they come up with their own questions.
Absolutely. That's a great one. One more and then we can move on.
Sure. C. Padmavati is saying to know how much the children understood.
Okay, great. That also is an inquiry. So what I am, is there anything more or can we move?
Yeah, there are plenty of, if you want me to take one, I can.
One more, but I will keep pausing. So there will be ample chance to answer more questions.
Definitely. So Ms. Meenakshi is saying having open-ended questions and enhance critical thinking skills.
I'm so happy we stopped once more because this was a fantastic answer, having open-ended questions. So I think you have kind of given a bit of secret out of the workshop itself. So thanks a lot to the participants, and thanks, Tanisha. So I'm going to be focusing on the 5E model. This is by R. Bybee. This is a standard model which a lot of teachers among you who follow a very natural flow of teaching, you might actually know that, oh, I was already doing this. I didn't know it's called a 5E model. The 5E model, as you can see, is interconnected, which means as a very creative ex-teacher, I believe you can actually start teaching from anywhere, so long as the whole cycle is completed. But by and large, class starts with engage, like the last answer that was throw an open-ended question and engage, hook the children into thinking. Then give them exploratory work, ask them to explain what they have done, elaborate. If they are going fast, give them, those kids who are going fast, give them tougher challenges so that they can think even more. Finally, have a kind of an assessment, not assessment like a written test, but somehow by the end of it, close the class. So the class starts with the teacher, engage, moves between kids and teacher, and then the teacher closes it by asking an exit question or by giving them a journal writing. I will be later sharing with you what kind of strategies that can be used in all the 3 steps. I will be giving you resources through the workshop, the resources which you can use. For example, of these 5 steps, I'm taking an example from coordinate geometry because I keep getting these messages in all feedback forms from teachers that why do workshop leaders only take examples from primary? So I'm going to take examples from primary, middle, senior. So this is a very simple coordinate geometry class where the teacher wanted children to learn how to find distance between 2 points, but either the x or the y coordinate is same. So for example, 0,3, 0,7 or 7,2, 9,2. So engage is hooking the children, which can be done by assessing previous knowledge. So the teacher just hands out straws and graph papers and says, find the length of the straws. That's an open-ended question which is thrown. Now, children are exploring. So the blue part is the beginning of the class. The second and third, the children are exploring in groups. The children work in groups, place straws on graph paper, draw a coordinate axis, and they find length. The teacher is going around the class and asking students, how did you get that? So if your child says distance between 0,3 and 0,10 is 7, so my straw length is 7 units, the teacher will ask, how did you get that? How do you know that this is the length? Elaborate. Once the teacher sees everybody is in place, the teacher says, okay, now can you find a formula? Can you generalize it and find the formula? And finally, the teacher wants to see, have the teachers understood? Have the kids understood? Sorry. So here the kids are working in groups. So finally, the teacher asks the kids to work independently and gives one question to all of them, or the children evaluate their work. And this independently followed by group work is very important because I used to do group work a lot when I was teaching in IB school, where, you know, sky is the limit to the amount of strategies you can use. And once a parent asked me, you're using group work all the time, how do you know if my child has understood? So you are saying group 1 is doing well, group 2 is not doing well, group 3 needs a lot of attention. Now suppose my child is in group 2. How will I know how has my child done? So I realized that after group work, it's always a good idea to do independent work so that independent evaluation can be done of the children. And if some of you know, this is also the model, I do, we do, you do it together, you do it alone. So after we, a you comes. So the teacher starts, the children work independently, and then the children work alone. So this is engage, explore, elaborate, evaluate. Any thoughts on it? Just pausing here, Tanisha, for maybe 2 questions from any 2 participants. Any question or any comment which is relevant to this slide only, not, I'll have an open house in the end where you can ask anything, but this is relevant only to this slide.
Participants, you can share your comments or your query here based on the slide, if you have any.
Anything? Otherwise, we can move. Tanisha, let me know.
No, ma'am, not yet.
Okay. So this was a senior school class. If you can just look at 5 steps for a class. The first one is teacher oriented. Second, third, and fourth is by and large student oriented. And finally, the teacher is evaluating. So these are the 5 steps, and I'll show you a classroom clipping. This is about 8 minutes, but I'm going to show you just first few minutes. This is a junior school class, and you can, I think, understand as you watch the kids' faces that this is a class of not very bright kids, but the process of 5E is very evident over here.
Bring it back in 3, 2, 1, 0. Number 1, I want you to be coming up with a conjecture. And number 2, I want you to be coming up with a reason.
So here she is engaging the class. This is the first step.
Reasoning or justification for why. Now, how how are we figuring out what this conjecture is about? I want you to think about the 3 problems that you just solved, as well as the number sentences that you created to go along with them. And if you look at your pages right now, the last bulleted question says, do answers always get bigger when you multiply or smaller when you divide? Why or why not?
So this is the question she has given to them. Is it true that when you multiply numbers, the answer is always bigger? So this is an open-ended question that she has thrown at the kids.
Your conjecture is going to be based off of this statement, and you're going to use the problems that you just solved as well as your number sentences to help you figure that out. When I say go, you can get started with your table groups in trying to figure out that conjecture. Is that always true or is it not?
And this is explore, explain, going together. So the kids will be working in groups and the teacher is going around talking to the children.
Another example without using 1, because you know when you multiply and divide by 1, you're always going to get that same number.
4 times 1/2.
What's 4 times 1/2?
2.
Which is what?
2.
That's a great example. You could use that.
Okay, so we could draw 1.
What's your conjecture?
When you multiply a whole number by a fraction where the numerator is less than the denominator, the product will always be smaller than the whole number.
Okay, where's your example? I'm reasoning. I need you to prove it.
So note the question that she has asked very clearly. She's only asking questions. Where's your example? Where's your reasoning? How do you prove it? She's not saying right, wrong. She's saying prove it. Prove whatever you are writing.
Voices off! Drop everything! So, who can remind me, what is a gallery walk, Josangeli?
Gallery walk is when different groups make.
And now the final step, she's not here pushing them to go to the next step. She is now doing the evaluation where the children will be displaying their work and students will be commenting on each other's work. So this evaluation is a peer evaluation.
Posters, we go around and put post-its and tell the group what was good about their poster and what needs to improve.
Okay, can someone remind us, what was our goal for the next time that we did a gallery walk?
Don't always write that someone is not being neat.
We need to make sure that we're being specific. What else? Michelle?
We have to actually tell them what's good about their work and things that they could work on the math or the explanation.
Okay, we are going to have 5 minutes to do our silent gallery walk. You're reflecting and putting your post-its on each of the chart papers.
So this is the evaluation part where the children have put up their work and other children are going around putting sticky notes on their work. And this is just one way of evaluation for a school probably which has these kind of resources as we can see. But this can also be done, I think, using notebooks, using pens, using color pens. And this is the final step of evaluation. So if you notice, the teacher has mostly asked questions and then the teacher got kids to work together in groups.
By the end of this discussion, I want us to have a 1-sentence statement that will always be true. Josangeli, why don't you start us off?
If you're multiplying a number smaller than 1, then the number will get smaller. If you multiply it by a number greater than 1, it will be greater. And if you were to multiply it by 1, it would be the same.
I would like to add on and say that when you multiply with fractions under 1, it would always leave the product smaller than you started with.
Why does that happen when you multiply a number less than 1 and it gets less? Why does that happen?
Ashley, give yourself a bonus for asking a question. I love that you're trying to figure out the reason why behind it. We want to make sure that we're always explaining our thinking.
Okay, and she wraps it up by giving the final answers, the final questions. Any comments or any thoughts here, Tanisha? We can open the chat box, and if there are any questions, or you can think about it. What is the one fantastic thing that you noticed about this class? And you can also think about what is the one thing that you could have done differently to make it a better class? Any
participants,
answer any
the
of these.
chat box is open. If you have any comments or any queries, you can post it here.
What is the one thing that was great? What is the one thing that could have been better? Anything, Tanisha? Or this is a very quiet group?
Not yet, ma'am. I think we'll take up the questions in the Q&A. No, okay. There are two.
Yeah.
Ms. Sonam has mentioned best way of teaching. Ms. Kiran has mentioned, okay, no, chat is enabled now. Okay. Mrs. Swami has mentioned accepting all the answers. Rajni has mentioned open-ended discussion. Then Ms. Pallavi has mentioned engaging activity is good. Pratima has mentioned don't see the relevance of sticky pads.
Okay.
Someone has mentioned giving children to explore themselves.
Okay, let's pause here for a second. The relevance of sticky pads is that it's somebody else's work. So if I am writing a comment on somebody else's work, I don't want to spoil it. So it's out of sensitivity. Also, these are small children. Although the teacher is writing, saying very clearly that we only want to say the good things. We don't want to be very harsh. You don't know what the children will write. For example, once I had a chart like this in my class and a child wrote on it. Let's say Archit's chart was there and Natasha wrote on it. I'm so glad that his work is worse than me. And that can hurt the child whose poster is put up. So then it's better to put it on sticky notes if it works out, or write it with a pencil so that the harsh comments can be removed, while the child writing the harsh comments probably would need some counseling. Thank you. Thanks for this. I think it's a good point that was raised. Thanks, Tanisha. We can move on.
Okay, ma'am.
So now here is a task for you, and we can kind of like pause for 2 minutes. I am putting a link in the chat box. Teachers, please have a look at this. These are lessons done by our good old Nagaland government, where they are actually doing a lot of intense work on 5E model. I'm also putting link of a poster which gives the 5E model very clearly. So what I would like you to do is to have a look at these lessons and this poster of 5E. Which gives very clearly how can I engage kids? I can engage using these methods. I think this poster will be very handy for you for your classes. How can I get an exploration happen? What are the tools that I can use? How can I do explain? How can I elaborate and evaluate? So what I am expecting you to do, maybe take 1 minute, and on page 2, the model lesson plan starts. Have a look at it. Have a look at the poster and see, could you have done something better here? And at this point, Tanisha, if it's okay, if anyone wants to unmute and speak, you can raise your hand and Tanisha will choose maybe 1 or 2 people. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat box. Could something have been done better? We can only wait for like 1.5 minutes for your answers. If it looks like it's going to need you a lot of time, you can also do this as a homework from us, this particular thing. But if you have if you have any comments on the lesson, on the poster, or you want to have any answer on how could this lesson have been designed better? Could engage have been a better activity? Could explore, elaborate, evaluate have been something better? How can this be improved? So using the poster as a guide, you can do. And as soon as answers start coming, Tanisha, if you can just have 2-3 answers. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Ms. Vandana Sharma has mentioned practical approach.
Okay.
Then Ms. Shweta has mentioned, I have also tried some hands-on activities related to the topic to
Okay.
increase the interest.
Okay.
Then Mr. Taimim has mentioned, yes, I can use differential learning according to children. Mrs.
Okay.
Prerna has mentioned so useful. And then we have, it's best way of teaching, but when strength is limited, then it will be good. Then we have when we excite the class with a statement and they ask relevant questions and look for their perspective.
Okay, hold it here. So I think this is an important point. If the strength is more, inquiry is still useful, but it can be a teacher-driven class. And I'll show you another video clipping later of a classroom. You can also set a very clear time. Like if you notice in this workshop, I'm saying each time you have 1 minute for this, you have 2 minutes for this. So you can also set a timer and say, okay, 3 minutes, I'm going to take questions from you. And like one of my colleagues used to do when the strength was really large, she used to give an opportunity to different groups every day. So let's say if kids are sitting in these columns in our classroom, she would say A, B, C, D, Monday column A, Tuesday column B, Wednesday, Thursday. So in 1 week, she covered the whole class, and needless to say, the kids absolutely loved her for it. So this is something I wanted to say. So we can move on. If there's something on this lesson, if you have anything on this lesson,
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
take. Yeah.
There's one more question. There's one more question. How to retain this? Students tend to forget easily.
Okay, there's only one way to retain things that students forget. It's called looping. You need to keep looping the content. So, for example, every third or fourth day, have maybe first 5 minutes of mental math in the class, but not mental math only based on number skills. Ask any question from the math that was done before. Say that, okay, any day I can ask you anything. The other thing which I have personally tried, and it was very, very successful, that in every pen and paper test, formative or summative, I would always say 20% of the test is from previous concepts. So let's say chapter 1 had a summative, and formative were taken very seriously in IB. So chapter 1 summative is from chapter 1. Chapter 2 summative is from chapter 1 and 2. Chapter 3 summative is from 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 20 summative is from all the chapters, 20% from first 19, 80%. So what happened that the kids got into the habit of going back and quickly revising. Now, I used to tell them very clearly that the previous concepts, only knowledge-based questions will come. I'm not going to trouble you by asking you a hard question, but so you need to know the facts. So by the time that we reached chapter 20, the kids were revising 19 chapters, and the first chapter was revised 20 times. So the feedback I got, and the IB school I worked in was a partially boarding school. I was on the campus. So the dorm parents told me before the maths exam, the kids weren't scared. They said, we already know everything. That's the only way to remember math concepts. This is one way, but the way is to keep repeating them. They need to repeat, looping, or it's also called as spaced revision, that you've taught something, after a certain while you revise it. Good questions coming. Thank you so much. I think when teachers' questions drive a workshop or a webinar, it's really great. So I'm moving on now, Tanisha, to assessment. Now, when I say assessment, in inquiry, assessment is during the inquiry lesson, as you saw the teacher. It's after the inquiry. So you are assessing when the children are working. A lot of teachers ask me, what do we do when the children are working in groups? That's the time you are doing your formative assessment. After inquiry is when children are presenting their work, which is when their posters went up on the walls. End of inquiry is when the topic is ended. When the children are working, the teacher asks questions. When the students share their work, end of the topic, students work alone. Like in this class, which I showed you, the teacher asked them in the end one question that kids were answering independently. So assessment is like a part of inquiry lesson. So then the question comes is, what kind of questions can you ask when the students are working? What kind of questions do you ask? There is a way of asking questions. And the kind of questions you ask is like the teacher was asking, what are you working on? How do you know your answer is correct? When did you learn this? How did the three of you work together so well? So there is a model called as 5W1H, which is also as a joke called Five Wives and One Husband. When, where, why, who, what, and how. So 5W1H is a common model. You just Google 5W1H questions and you will get ample posters for it. If you keep these 6 words in your mind in an inquiry class or any class, it will work very well. And you can keep modifying your questions that, where did you learn this before? Where did you learn this from? Where did you find this information? Or what are you doing? What do you think can you do next? Or what do you think can you do to get the correct answer? Or it can be, when did we last learn it? When did you two learn to work together so well? Or who do you think invented this? So there can be so many questions. But even if there is nothing, if you just keep how and why, how do you know the answer is correct? Why are you using this method? That how and why itself would be there. And I think NEP also lists it somewhere that the how and why is something which teachers should keep asking. Pausing here for kind of any questions. So Tanisha, we can take maybe 3-4 questions if they are really burning questions.
Sure. Sure, ma'am. Participants, if you have any questions, please post it in the chat box. Okay, there's one from Mohammed Ali. How to keep all 20 topics in summative with 2080 division?
2080 division, see, it's 80% comes from the current topic. So let's say 20th chapter is what you're assessing. So 80% will be from that 20th chapter. So let's say you have 10 questions in a test. I'm using 10 as a placeholder. So 8 questions come from the 20th chapter. 2 questions are from 1 to 19 chapter. Now, which chapter will you use? The kids don't know. So what you need to tell them is 2 questions are from 1 to 19, but I'm not going to tell you which chapter. Now, question number 1 can have 3 parts. They can be MCQs. They can be fill in the blanks. The 3 parts can be from any 3 chapters. The other question number 2, 3 parts can be from any 3 chapters. So you've got 6 chapters covered, but the kids don't know which 6 chapters. That's the thing. Now, in the 19th chapter, you would have assessed some other previous chapters, in 20th, some others. So you can keep mixing, but the kids, the thing is, kids should not know where the question will come from. So what I noticed that some children who really wanted to get 100% would go back and redo everything. Some kids would say, okay, it's okay, I'm fine with whatever I get from 80%. Whereas some kids would say, I want that 1 mark or I want that. So responses are different. But it forces the kids to go back and revise. This is one way only. Another way can be, I have also tried with something called as catch-up classes. So after one amount of work is done, let's say 10 days of teaching, 11th class is a catch-up class where you just pause. And children who have been on leave, children who have not covered, they use that time to catch up. Children whose homework is missing something, whereas children who have moved ahead would be helping others. So that's a class where there's no teaching. That's a class kids can use for revision. Now, it may seem, as I always hear from teachers, time is less. How do we do this? But actually, when you use these strategies, the curriculum works faster because the kids are more motivated. The other way can be to simply keep having 5 minutes revision formatives. So let's say every week, whatever is taught every Friday, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, one formative with MCQs. If you have access to digital assets, give them MCQ on a digital platform, otherwise pen and paper, or write 5 questions on the board. Basically, just keep revising every week, and the kids will forever be indebted to you because they will not forget. I'm sorry I spoke too much. Your question was only on the last one. Any other, Tanisha? We can take like one or two more questions. Hello?
Hello. Yeah, there's one more.
Yeah.
Is the assessment in IBL should be always quantitative?
Not really. You can also have qualitative. You can also give children the set of learning outcomes that you have covered in a week and ask them which one do you understand best. That's a feedback for you. Smiley face, okay face, sad face, smiley face if you understood it. So you would also know which topic they remember. It can also be journal writing, that at the end of the class, everybody falls quiet. You have 2 minutes or 3 minutes and just write, what did I learn today? And what was the best moment of the class. So it can also be qualitative. It's completely up to you. Have a blend of both quantitative and qualitative. That would be my recommendation. So moving on, Tanisha, thank you. Now, classroom structure for inquiry. Any classroom anywhere in the world has 3 parts: start, middle, end, beginning, middle, end. Inquiry class generally advise start with the teacher, end with the teacher. In between, let the kids have some flexibility to explore, to discuss, to explain, which can be led by the teacher, as I'll show you in another classroom where the teacher is leading inquiry, or it can be led by the children, as I showed you in the previous video where the children were working in groups and the teacher was just walking around. But if you just, even if you don't remember the 5E fully, just remember beginning, middle, end. Beginning by the teacher, end by the teacher, get the kids back together, group them, even if it's for 1 minute, even if it is, okay, take a deep breath and just write, what did I learn? Middle can be students working on their own. So here I'll show you a really high school class where the teacher has given this question based on Pythagoras theorem, bell, rope, and it's something is happening with rope on the wall. But what I want you to see is how the teacher is letting the children lead. But this question that he has given is the first step, engagement or prompt. And after that, what does he do?
Because
All right, guys, go ahead and have a seat. All right, Kate, so walk us through what you're
The
thinking.
student is explaining on the board.
So, just as a diagram, this is the rope. When it's hanging down to the floor, it just barely reaches the floor. This is it when it's touching the wall. It's 3 inches above the floor, and it's 4 feet from the wall when it's hanging. And I didn't really know where to go from here, but I was thinking that you could do something like this. But I couldn't figure out how to find the slope of this line or how to find like this actual triangle. So, any help would be really great.
I think I've got it.
Okay.
So your diagram's awesome.
So if you see, the teacher is standing at the back of the class.
Whenever you're dealing with things where you're going to be talking about things in inches and things in feet, just make sure that you're consistent.
Yeah, okay.
So what do you want to change? Do you want to change the 3 to a fraction or the 4 to a 48?
I'll change the 3 to a fraction. Actually, no, I think 48 would just be easier. Okay. Miles, do you want to come up here and grab a marker?
well, I just thought of this, but if you say that whole side is x,
So this is the middle of the class where the teacher has given a slight open space for the kids to talk about their thinking.
At your diagram, and the thing that you notice about the isosceles part of it, focus on that.
Okay. So, where am I going with this? Okay, so...
If the height of the wall, if the height of the ceiling is x,
oh, then it's x minus 3 as well.
what's the hypotenuse, Kate?
The hypotenuse is the same as this side. So then, I don't know.
Well, what's the variable that you used?
We used x for it.
Yeah,
Okay, so
they're
what's the
both
hypotenuse?
Oh, x. Oh. And that would be in inches.
So if you can see, the teacher is getting answers from the kids. And I think any class where a child can say confidently, I don't know, it's already a beautiful inquiry class. So, and it goes on and on in this way. One question: how do you think this class should end? How do you think that last E should happen here, which is evaluation? And it can be qualitative, quantitative, formative. It can't be summative, it would be formative. How do you think? Any one answer, Tanisha, only for this particular question? If you were a teacher teaching this class in this manner, how would you end the class? It can't go on and on and on the board. So how would you end it for evaluation? Any one answer, because otherwise we'll be short of time.
Sure. Okay, there's one, I guess. By example, Mr. Atar has mentioned by example.
Okay.
And Sumi has mentioned conclude the teacher explain.
Okay.
Then we have asking all the students to do pen and paper.
Yeah, we can pause here because I think these three are great. Thank you so much, teachers, and thank you so much, Tanisha. So I either give the children one question each, ask them to solve, or the teacher can finally go on the board, wrap up everything, or the third one was that by teacher can give an example, another example, and show how to explain. But somewhere a wrap up should be there. Even if you like movies or if you like theater, you see there's always a beginning which triggers our thinking, what's happening. Then there is a whole middle, and then there is an end. You know, the end should be such that nobody forgets what happened. Because so this is the thing, and I have already asked the question, so I'm moving on here. With my next question, what do you think a good inquiry teacher, what qualities would a good inquiry teacher have? And here again, chat can be enabled. Tanisha, if you can hear some 5 or 6 answers. If I want to become a really good inquiry teacher, please help me. What kind of personality traits or characteristics that I must have? What kind of teachers are really good inquiry teachers? Please help me here. What should a good inquiry? You can just write one word answers.
Yeah, there are answers are coming here. Good listener, good questioning, good listening
skills. Good listener is really good.
Subject, like there was something posing the direct questions.
Yeah.
And open-minded, be familiar with a variety of questions, student-centric classroom, open to learning herself, patience, calm mind. Okay. Encouraging the students to ask more and more questions based on the topic, positive attitude, understanding, good selection of questions, creative, incorporate discovery and research in classroom.
Okay, can you just pause here? Next, these are great answers, but I would also ask you to think of what personality traits, in the sense, what skills should a teacher have? For example, the teacher should be a good time manager, should have one eye on the time and know that, okay, 2 minutes, I need to do this. What other skills do you think, practical skills, should the teacher have? These are all absolutely great answers, and we can take some more, Tanisha. Thank you so much.
Sure, ma'am. Okay. Good observer, good planner, problem solver.
Planner, yes.
Patience in addressing the questions. Complete teacher material. Teacher should listen each and every child. Acceptance. Approachable to students.
Yeah, shouldn't be scary. Yeah, otherwise kids won't work. And you can pause whenever you feel like, Tanisha, then you can go back.
Sure, ma'am. Capturing internet of learners. Hot questions.
Interest of learning.
Asking thought-provoking questions. Celebrating brilliant minds.
Someone who understands, celebration. Someone who knows how to ask questions. Someone who knows how to celebrate kids. Someone who's approachable, who's not scary, patient, great. And a good planner, fantastic. Pretty much things are covered before I show you the next and the final short clipping. Anything else, Tanisha?
No, ma'am, we can move ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a short clipping by this lady who is considered the mom of the whole process of inquiry. And she's going to share with you some characteristics that she thinks inquiry teachers should have. And my last question to you would be, after you listen to her, any one any one characteristic that you feel, yes, I really have it, and any one characteristic that you feel, I really need to grow into this. So any one thing that you have and any one thing that you don't have. These are the two things.
I think one of the key differences that make an inquiry teacher what they are is their the way of seeing the student, actually, that they see the student first and foremost as a competent, capable, curious, almost partner in learning. So they see the light in each child. They find it, they find what it is that makes that student intrigued and interested, and there's always something in everyone. Inquiry teachers ask more than they tell. They do tell, but their dominant way of working with students is through questions and through the right kinds of questions. So they know how to scaffold. There's a kind of image of the inquiry teacher as this kind of laissez-faire, hands-off teacher that simply lets the kids do what they want. That's been a very persistent image, and it comes from some poor iterations of inquiry. But in fact, the opposite is true of the best inquiry teachers I know. They are teachers that know how to sit with the student, to carefully scaffold. They know their curriculum so well that they can move with the students' interests in order to come to that curriculum. They have a very strong repertoire of strategies and approaches. I mean, in some ways, when you think about teachers that might rely on a textbook to do the work for them, or that, and I still see it, that simply give kids worksheets to fill in, surely that is abdicating responsibility. Maybe it would be even better for those kids if they were able to just go in to find out what they wanted to find out. I think what inquiry teachers do differently is that they're prepared to share the journey with their students. They're prepared to say the important words, I don't know, I wonder how we might find out. They are not simply a kind of passive guide on the side, as they're often described. They're very much in the centre. They're alongside the student. They are highly sophisticated practitioners. They know where it is. They're wanting to take their students at a big picture level, but they work often with the interests, the questions that the student brings to the learning in order to take them further. They listen, they observe, and they respond to what students reveal to them. They're also teachers that are great designers, so they bring a kind of design thinking disposition to their work.
Kat Murdoch, she's the, what does it mean to be an inquiry teacher? And anyone wants to share this? I felt this video was amazingly capturing, and so many of her answers, so many of you have already shared. If there's anything else, you can ask. And these are the resources here which you can ask. Eschan team will share with you all the resources which are available. Otherwise, if there's anything anyone wants to share, ask questions, or share anything about characteristic traits of inquiry teacher, this is like an open house for 5 minutes where you can ask anything or comment on anything.
Participants, if you have any questions or queries, please paste it in the chat box.
And this is pretty open. If you have any question on maths teaching, inquiry-based learning, or even in general on maths teaching, if you really want to have some solutions, I would be happy to share with you. Whatever little I know, I'd be happy to share with you. So Tanisha, any question is fine, and till the time that you feel we can have questions.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. You've been a blessing.
Okay, there's one from Vasundhara. Can you share more on scaffolding?
Okay, scaffolding is when you help the children, like the teacher in the junior classes video was doing, she was asking questions. And scaffolding is when you ask questions using how. So a child says 2 plus 7 is 10. How do you know 2 plus 7 is 10? Why do you think it's 10? So that gives the child a chance to think. And then the child starts counting on the fingers or something, and the teacher can spot the error and say, okay, now pause here. Can you just look at it again? Now, it doesn't go on and on and on because we don't have the time and children can get tired. So at some point, the teacher can give the answer. But instead of giving an instant answer, perhaps the teacher is giving the answer after 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So 40 seconds of scaffolding using questions. It's like scaffolding, the best example is when a building is constructed. If you have seen, first they create all those poles, then the building comes up, then those poles are demolished. That's scaffolding.
Ms. Pallavi wants to know how can we clear basic concepts of maths?
How can we clear basic concepts in maths? So always take a diagnostic test before you start any chapter. So you need to know, let's say you, depending on the class you're teaching, let's say you're starting to teach linear equations in one variable, and just see, okay, what do the kids need to know? They need to know how to add, subtract, they need to know what are unknowns, they need to know how to solve a basic equation, they need to know the signs plus, minus, equal to, into, they need to know X, Y, Z. So take all the basics down to grade 1 that they need to know. And maybe a quick diagnostic, which can be via a quiz or a pen and paper or digital, or in any creative, non-quantitative way where you tell the children, these are the things you need to know before I start the class. I want you to get into groups and discuss with each other. What do you know? What do you not know? So you'll see kids saying, hey, I don't know what is equal to. What is equal to? Another one may say, I don't know what is known and unknown. So give them a chance to catch up before you start. And this needs to be done over and over and over again. You don't think that, okay, one diagnostic test, I tested whether they know the difference between known and unknown and they will know it. Next time you do maybe quadratic equations, bring the known and unknown back. Even if they get worked up and they say, why are you asking us again and again? Please keep doing it. The other way is to focus on vocabulary of math. Now, there are tons and tons of ways of focusing on vocabulary. A lot of textbooks, including S-Chan, they have this component in their books. Put up a chart in the class and every day ask the kids, what is the new word you learned? Put it there. A chart, like for me, I'll give you my example. I put a chart next to the exit door. So when they are entering, exiting, they had to see it. So subconsciously, they walk to it and they would ask each other, you know, I know this, I don't know this. Now, if you don't have facility to have a chart, ask the kids to use the last page of their notebooks every day, like clockwork. What's the new word you learned today? Put it into this. If the textbook have it, revise it. That also helps a lot in building basic concepts. If they know vocabulary, their basic concepts grip will not loosen up. But don't think I've already done known and unknown or plus or equal to sign, or I've already done carryover or borrow and it will be there forever. Keep revising it. Even if they get irritated, just keep revising it. Anything else, Tanisha?
Okay, we have, yes, basic concepts, curriculum, we are concentrated, but how we can help more to explore of math puzzles, riddle, Olympiad, how can we help a child?
Okay, so fantastic question. One of the teachers wrote when I asked what is the characteristics of inquiry teacher, planner. You need to be a really good planner, which means that if you have these 10 great creative ideas you want to explore, how do I plan it so it's spread out over the year? For example, for me, it was like last lesson, whenever the last lesson is math, I'm going to do something fun. So let's say one lesson on Thursday, last is math, or the lesson just after lunch, or the lesson just after sport. So whatever you want to do, you need to put it in the timetable, that this lesson or half of this lesson is for fun, or it is for puzzles, and then have a puzzle, have its solution, have a timer, put the kids into groups, give them the puzzle, have the answer, walk around, use 5W and 1H to only ask questions. When the timer rings, say, okay, here is the answer. How many of you got it right? So that you are not busy adding so much of correction work. Rather, you are giving kids the responsibility for their learning. So that's the way you do it. You do it by being a great planner and plan your whole year and decide fun has to come. And believe me, when fun enters your classes, then you will find that 5-day curriculum actually can be in 3 days, because the kids would want that fun class. So they will work on the other classes.
Okay, we have one more. Can we consider an exit ticket as assessment?
Absolutely. Fantastic question and fantastic idea. Exit ticket is always in last evaluation. So the last E of 5E can be an exit question.
Okay, then we have students tend to forget easily. How can we help in these cases? And how to engage kids in word problems?
So kids tend to forget easily. I've already answered. Looping is the only way. You just have to keep revising old concepts. Word problems, one of the best ways to do it is by asking the kids to draw pictures of the word problems. And let's say if they are doing five birds on a tree, 2 flew away, let them draw a draft tree in the notebook, maybe with color pencils. And in the senior classes, when they used to have problems like a boat going upstream and dying downstream, I used to encourage them, draw small, sea and the boat is going upstream. Visual thinking helps in visualizing a word problem for the kids who are not very text savvy. So the kids who are good with language will do well in word problems, but the kids who think using pictures like I do, I always visualize when I'm thinking, they need to draw pictures.
Okay, when we have, how can we fascinate our kids into maths?
Oh, that's going to be a whole new workshop. I would say maybe a lot of ideas have come up today. Start by inquiries, start by throwing open-ended questions, puzzles. Bring in other ways you can do is bring in projects, but mega projects, like one project going on for 2 months where they are working at home mostly. Another way I think which worked very well for the kids I taught was answering the why this topic was invented. Like anytime you're planning a lesson, I used to have a kid in my class who was a lawn tennis player, and he used to always ask, why are we learning this? Who invented math? If you think, so I was very scared of him because he wouldn't let the class move forward. So when I planned a lesson, before planning, I used to ask myself, why are the kids learning this? So that's real life applications. The second questions I used to ask myself is, okay, who invented this topic? That's history of math. So if you bring history of math, why did Pythagoras think, did he really invent this theorem or discover it? No, he only proved it. Actually, this was known long before by Indians. If you bring a little bit of history to class, the kids are generally fascinated. And the other thing is, bring the real life applications. Bring maths in nature. There was a class of my kids who hated maths. In IB, they were part of the SL studies where they weren't going to do math later in university. So I showed them a video which just showed the wonders of math in nature, that how, let's say, sunflower seeds, or the spiral of a dust storm, or the spiral when water goes in the sink, when the water in the soap goes, that's a whirlpool, it's a spiral. They were fascinated. So try real life, history, maths in nature. Try these.
Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am. I think now we are about to close our session because it's already 12:59. Yeah, so thank you so much for your insightful presentation on the topic of inquiry-based learning. And I hope your knowledge and expertise will be invaluable to our teachers as they explore new ways to engage their students in mathematics. And I'm confident that teachers have taken away at least one idea from this session for an engaging classroom experience. And I would also like to thank all the participants for joining. I hope you found the session informative and helpful. And I would like to remind you all that we have another session scheduled for 2 p.m. today, focusing on the key challenges in teaching mathematics. So be there on time. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and for your efforts. And thank you, everyone, for joining this session.
Thanks for the support throughout the session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And if you would like to have any of the resources shared in the workshop, please reach out to Esther. Thank you. Thank you so much.